around the topic in a way that makes trying to disprove the propaganda within it a useless task. This is visible now, maybe more than ever. The narrative crafted by Israel and parroted by the media and politicians of the West is one where a purely innocent victim, Israel, was attacked by the savage and brutal terrorists of Hamas who appeared out of thin air to exact their violence. The public conversation is constantly pushed into this neat, convenient box from which there is no escape. We have to spend all our time just trying to disprove the initial narrative and the false information that it's based on. Let's use an example. You try to talk to somebody about the genocide happening in Palestine and how we have to do something to stop it, and they respond with, didn't they bomb their own hospital? Suddenly you feel as if you have to respond to that question and to try to disprove what they just said. You show them analyses now done by the New York Times, Channel 4, and Al Jazeera, showing how the munition that killed hundreds of people taking refuge at the hospital actually came from Israel, and the argument for it being a misfired rocket from Gaza comes entirely from falsified information. They argue against those points, showing their own sources, and the discussion gets bogged down in who's right and who's wrong and the specifics of this one situation. Did you notice the trick they've played there? Now you spend the whole discussion with this one person talking about something other than the fact that there's a genocide happening right now to a people who've been violently repressed for over 75 years. The opposition has managed to distract you from the thing that actually matters, which is the abject evil that's being perpetrated by Israel and supported by the West. The narrative has been twisted, and you with all good intentions played into the narrative they've created. Any attempt to directly engage with the said narrative will be sucked into it, no matter the intent. Because at every step of the way, you will be purposefully distracted from the reality of the situation. The reality in which Israel cannot, in any possible way, be regarded as just an innocent victim trying to defend themselves. And there's more to this than just one propaganda-crafted story. And there's more than just this one propaganda-crafted story we're told to play here. There's one that is hidden beneath all of this, and it's the narrative that the West has been already using to exact brutal genocidal violence on the Middle East for decades. It's the racist lie where Arabs and Muslims are evil terrorists who are out to commit horrific acts of violence for no other reason than blind hatred of the West, and that to protect the West, they must seek out and destroy both the terrorists and their people. This is the story that we were told by the media and the politicians of the West in 2001 and 2003 to justify the wars against Afghanistan and Iraq, and it's the exact same thing that Israel is doing right now. They have been repeating to us for decades that all Muslims are inherently dispositioned to become terrorists, and so all of them are valid military targets. In 2003, they used Al-Qaeda as an excuse for their blind violence, and now they're doing it by using Hamas. Now that we've considered these narratives were given by the West, the question becomes why? Why is there so much effort put into this, creating these propagandized false versions of reality? The reason for all of this is a truly bleak, heartless politics focused on profits above all else. And the Middle East is laden with the rich resources to extract and use for profit. And to extract this profit, the West needs a military presence with which it can force their will by violence and shape the region to their own needs. For all of this, they need a military port and ally, and they have found that ally in Israel, and so they will defend their allies' actions no matter what they do. The West would rather sit on the sidelines while a genocide is being committed than endanger their alliance with Israel, without whom they do not have a safe and reliable port and ally in the Middle East. You can see these lies and stories being crafted in front of your very eyes just by checking the news in Finland. They will talk about the genocide in Palestine with words like a humanitarian crisis, the Israel-Hamas war, the Hamas offensive, or other such words that have nothing to do with the actual reality behind the narratives. They will publish Israeli official statements without critique or question, but anything coming from Palestinians is either completely ignored, published with critique, or is implied to be unreliable for one reason or another. They'll tell you how awful Hamas is on repeat every day, but will never tell you about the Israeli settlers in the West Bank massacring Palestinians and occupying their homes. All context that existed before October 7th has also been eradicated and ignored in this propagandized narrative because it would make it impossible to justify the actions of the West's most important ally in the Middle East. All it takes for you to witness this being done is to compare your usual British news sources front page to the front page of any non-Western news media, and you'll see the incredible difference in how they portray the genocide in Palestine. I'll take this moment to remind you to educate yourself in the history of Palestine, because it's only through truth that you can piece together the actual reality behind the dishonest propaganda. We must come together in this and practice verbal combat against these narratives, these lies, this propaganda. Pierce the veil and witness the brutal and terrifying reality of this genocide. Call it out for what it really is and talk about it to everybody you know. Take it upon yourself as a mission to not be silent, to use the voice that you have. Your words matter. Your opinions matter. Make them heard and don't be afraid, because you are not alone. The powers that be are trying their hardest to make us feel alone and hopeless. But together, we hold immense power in our hands and in our words. Don't be distracted by the narratives around you, but pierce through them and force the people around you to witness the reality of this genocide. And don't beat around the bush, afraid of making people upset, but be brutally honest about the horror of what is being done to the people of Palestine. There's so much that you as an individual can do, as long as you embrace the